Hey, what is going on, guys? Thetsus here, and today I'm bringing you guys another gameplay commentary over on the TapX channel. So the gameplay you guys are watching in the background is a double nuclear on the map Express using the M27 by Doom Never, or Never That Kid. He's got a pretty cool dual channel going on with Doom Caesar, or rather just Caesar YT. So I'm going to, obviously their channel is going to be down in the description. I want you guys to go subscribe to them, and they kind of tie into what I want to talk to you guys about today. But first, like I said before, pretty cool gameplay. It's a double nuclear with the M27 on a map you guys don't see very often in multi-team hardpoint. The map is Express. It's actually a pretty underrated map. A lot of times when you see multi-team gameplays, they're on the same maps like Hijacked and Slums, but this is a map that I think a lot more people should play. It's definitely got a lot of potential. Obviously, this game's been out for a while, so there's not too many people playing it, but it's definitely a pretty fun map to play in pubs and even pretty fun in competitive. Back when I had my league play phase, Express, Hardpoint, and S&D were some of my most fun maps to play. So, like I said before, Doom Caesar and Never's channel being a dual channel kind of ties what I want to talk to you guys about today, and that's going to be kind of like a sidekick and team-ups that are pretty cool in, pop culture and shit. So, first one I want to talk to you guys about today is probably the one you guys really don't know too much about, and that is Hit Girl and Kick-Ass. So these are actually based on the movies that recently Kick-Ass 2 came out. The first one came out, I want to say 2010, and they were based on comics written by Mark Millar, and they're actually some of my favorite comics that I've ever read in my life. They're extremely violent, a lot of sex and violence and all that shit and cursing. You'd think with a title like Kick-Ass, obviously you would expect something like that. It's definitely not a kid-friendly book by any means, but so the guy Kick-Ass, he's basically just an asshole that dresses up in a costume and he beats people up with 2 nightsticks. And they kind of touch on this in the comics. He doesn't have any superpowers. His parents didn't get killed and he has to avenge them or any bullshit like that. He's just pretty much an asshole that reads comics, is a nerd, and he just starts working out and he gets trained and shit, and he just kicks people's asses. And that, it's a pretty cool premise, I think, in my opinion, because they live in a world where there are no superheroes. So, it's just him and the police. And he's got this sidekick named Hit Girl, who her and her dad was kind of crazy. So he raised his daughter. She's only like 10 years old or something like that. So he raised his daughter to be this highly trained killer. He teaches her how to use all these weapons and knives and shit. And she, pretty badass. She lives up to her name, Hit Girl. And she's actually got some, like, my favorite moments in comics and in movies. If you guys have seen the movies, and you know what I'm talking about, when she uses a cheese grater for as a certain weapon to attack a certain area. I'm not going to describe it in any more detail, but pretty cool scene. And yeah, definitely one of my favorite, like, kind of, I wouldn't call her a sidekick per se, because I think she's probably more badass than Kick-Ass. She's actually got the training and she can actually kill people and stuff like that. So, and the next pretty cool combo is probably one that you guys are more familiar with. That would be Batman and Robin. So, like I mentioned before, I'm pretty into comics and all that shit. So, Batman and Robin, they've been a pretty big part of my life. And that sounded really fucking gay, but you know what I mean. So, Batman and Robin, pretty cool. And, like, there's been a bunch of Robins. So, the first Robin, his name was Dick Grayson or Richard Grayson, whatever. He actually was the original Robin. He went on to become Nightwing, and there was a couple other Robins after that. There was Jason Todd, who was actually killed by the Joker back in the 1990s, and then he came back to life using something called the Lazarus Pit. You guys might know about that if you played the Arkham City games, but so he came back to life as a character now known as Red Hood, and then the Robin that came after him and is still currently the Robin right now, his name is Tim Drake. He's definitely not my favorite Robin. I think my favorite Robin still is Dick Grayson. He was always the most badass. And he had an origin story similar to Batman's, where his parents were killed or whatever by a gang leader, and he wanted to go after them. Except in his case, he actually knew who killed his parents. Because if you didn't know, Batman doesn't actually, like, the guy who killed him, killed his parents. They don't actually really touch on that in the comics or in any of the movies, because it's supposed to just be some random guy, just some random criminal who did it, for drug money or whatever. So I always thought Dick Grayson was pretty cool, especially when he went on to become Nightwing, which is kind of his own separate thing. He was still in Gotham City, but he was no longer Batman's sidekick. He had grown up, he had begun to do his own thing. Obviously, he still works with Batman and all that shit, but that's a pretty cool team up right there. And last but not least would be Spock and Captain Kirk from the Star Trek movies. So I never really watched the old Star Trek TV show or any of the old movies. I started with the Star Trek movie that came out in 2009, which was actually when I was in the 6th grade, and it took them quite a while, now that I think about it, to come up with the second one, In the Darkness. That actually just came out last year when I was in my sophomore year, so about 5 years in between the two movies, but it was well worth the wait. Definitely a pretty cool movie. You don't really have to like Star Trek or Star Wars or anything like that to enjoy the movie like Star Trek. It was just, if you're a fan of action movies in general, I would say this would be a good movie for you to watch. Spock, he was part of an alien race, because Captain Kirk is a human. And obviously, there's the whole USS Enterprise or Space Enterprise, whatever, that they open up to all these different universes and shit like that, and they travel different planets. So I believe his alien race is called the Vulcans, so that's why they have like the pointy ears, and you probably know him from like when he spreads out his two fingers or whatever, and does that like kind of peace sign or something like that. But he's also got that pretty cool Vulcan nerve pinch where he grabs you at a certain point in your neck and like you go unconscious and shit. That was always pretty cool. And he's got like superhuman strength, I want to say. I don't want to really call him a superhero, but he's got really cool strength. He's a really cool scene in Star Trek Into Darkness where he actually fights the villain, who is Khan. That was a pretty badass fight scene when they're on top of like a flying helicopter. Not a helicopter, but like some kind of flying ship. That was pretty cool. So if you haven't watched those movies, I would definitely recommend it. I would also recommend you guys watch the Dark Knight trilogy if you haven't watched that. Even though Robin isn't in that movie, well, technically, I would say that there's still pretty cool movies. I wouldn't recommend the ones with like Tim Burton and all that actually had Robin in it. They definitely weren't too good. And I would also recommend you guys read the Kick-Ass books and watch the movies. So that's all the time I have left for this gameplay commentary. Remember to leave a like to support Tap X and go down into the description and check out Doom Never's channel. And if you guys enjoy the commentary over it, you can always check out my channel as well. Peace.